Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I've Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
Today, we have an amazing guest on the show. She's a game developer and the creative director of Stumbling Cat Studios, which she created. Hello. She was also Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2020. I feel like I have to give that shout out immediately because I'm like, yeah, there she goes. It is Renee Gittins. Yay! Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. Really glad to be here.
Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Renee Gittins. I am a game developer. I currently run my own studio, Stumbling Cat, and we just launched Potions, A Curious Tale, an adventure crafting game. But I've done a lot in the games industry. I volunteer for the IGDA and was previously the executive director, and our mission is to support and empower game developers around the world in achieving fulfilling and sustainable careers. I create a lot of free educational content on TikTok and YouTube to uplift the next generation of game developers. And prior to my role leading just my studio, I was the general manager of Phoenix Labs Vancouver, creators of Dauntless and Fae Farm.
Wow. Yeah, you have a lot under your belt. When I was looking through just your LinkedIn, I was like, damn, like this is her industry. She has been creating since way back when you went into school for something similar to this, obviously. Can you kind of tell us how you got into this world?
Yeah, actually, I got in a lot later than many of my peers because I didn't know I could be a game developer growing up. And despite being absolutely in love with math, I wasn't introduced to programming until college. So I started a little late. So I actually went to school to get an engineering degree with a focus in mechanical engineering to become a biomechanical engineer with focus in prosthetics. And I started my career in biotech, working on skin sensors for various companies. But it was my senior year of college that I learned I could be a game developer. And I've been a gamer like my whole life, very passionately. I started playing video games at maybe 4 or 5. And unexpectedly, it was mostly first-person shooters at first, because that's what my father was playing. So like Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, and then Pokemon Yellow were my first 4 games. So I had a bit of a aggressive start to video games, but I truly fell in love with them and ended up making cosplay, participating in forums, writing guides. But like I said, it was only my senior year of college that I met a game developer and went, I can make games? Wait, game developers are like me. I can be a game developer. And so I decided to work on changing my career trajectory from there.
In your senior year.
Yeah.
I love that.
My senior year of college. Yeah, I was a little late.
Never, obviously.
And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I'm so big into advocacy, because if I had known it was a career path for me and been provided the tools to pursue it earlier, like I would have been making games as a kid, teenager, or even before if I could. And so I want to ensure that no one else is deprived from that opportunity of exploring a really great potential dream for them just because they aren't aware or don't feel like they're welcome or anything like that. And so I worked really hard and ended up breaking into the games industry through multiple paths, and I am where I am today.
That is amazing. And also you are pointing to a problem. Every time we talk about the gaming industry, we kind of have to talk about that of women not seeing women, marginalized people not seeing marginalized people in that industry. And that is something that you've been outspoken about and that you're passionate about. Can you talk about the experiences that you have had in the gaming industry as part of that, and then also just maybe changes that you've seen in it in the past few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am very lucky that I haven't experienced much direct harassment, at least from my game industry peers. And in general, until very recently, I hadn't experienced much harassment within the games industry in my career at all. As a woman who played video games, as a girl who liked first-person shooters, I can tell you I was very excited to play Counter-Strike for the first time. And the first time I spoke up in chat as a 12, 13-year-old girl playing Counter-Strike, I decided I didn't like online first-person shooters because that was just Oh, that was toxic. And, with my upbringing, like I wasn't a bad first person shooter player, but it was just the sound of my voice was enough to get really vile harassment. And I think that is a point where a lot of people stop playing games. And I can't blame them for that. It is unpleasant. Throughout my history as a gamer and fan, I certainly have received all sorts of weird death threats and stalking and harassment, particularly when I got into cosplaying. That was it was really big there. But when I started my game industry career, I found the games industry in general to be very welcoming. Especially indie developers are just so kind and willing to share knowledge. The games industry might be somewhat competitive, but the way that game developers treat each other is not in a competitive manner. It's like we're all in this together. And so knowledge sharing and support is all really frequent. Now, I've definitely had a few uncomfortable situations in networking events. And more commonly, I found that people make a lot of assumptions based on my gender. Originally, before I became well known in the games industry, if I was standing next to a male near my age, I was assumed to be a girlfriend, not a game developer, and was like ignored in the rounds of introductions. That happened a few times. I'm a very assertive person, so I made sure I was introduced anyway, even if I was skipped. But again, that's one of those things where, death by 1,000 cuts, if you're dealing with that while breaking into the industry, it can be really rough. And then I've had situations where I've talked about my work and my teams, for Stumbling Cat on potions, I've said like, oh, this person's helping with art, this person's helping with audio, this person does environment art, and then I do everything else. And the person's next question was, well, then who does the programming? That's me. Like, that's part of everything else. Yay. Definitely get assumed to be an artist and such when people meet me as well. And obviously it's just their biases, their subconscious biases. So
right. And when you do tell them, yeah, it's me, do you usually get the, oh, wow, or is it like, oh, okay, yeah, like obvious? What is the reaction?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times people realize in that moment that they had made a really poor assumption. They're just like, oh, yikes. Yeah. Yes, that's on me. Like, of course.
Right.
Not everyone is self-reflective, but for the most part, in those situations, I've found people to be a little embarrassed when they realize their mistake.
Right. I would hope so. I mean, at least very much acknowledge, like, yeah, that was an unconscious bias that I have. I need to unlearn that, which is a great lesson at your expense. Sorry. And, within the gaming industry in general, especially when it comes to different, especially larger corporations that we've seen, there's been a lot of shakeups. Me Too movement has hit up some of the bigger corporations because of this. Have you seen changes in the industry, whether good or bad?
Absolutely. I think the games industry is continuing to change for the better, and it still has a long way to go. With the rise of online digital games distribution, through Steam, the Epic Store, and even just like through platforms, through online stores that are hosted by Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, it has really allowed for a lot of smaller teams to rise up and for there to be less weight in publishers and purely big studios. And that has had both pros and cons. It has allowed for like a shakeup and a broadening of the people joining the games industry. And occasionally it has allowed for teams where it's just a bunch of friends together to suddenly explode in popularity. And then turns out they're like, buddy bro culture does not expand well to a 400 or 4,000 person company. And that can cause like some toxicity there. So the Me Too movement and other advocacy efforts to call out these issues certainly has caused a lot of intentional addressing of them. So there are more knowledge amongst HR teams, amongst management, there are more policies, but it's not perfect. It's still got a ways to go. And while the number of women identifying people are increasing within the games industry, it's still a slow pace because it's not just the games industry that has issues, right? Like STEMs still has issues about being welcoming to women, and education does. Like my second grade teacher told me I didn't need to know more math because I was a girl. Beyond
Wow,
long
second
division.
grade.
It turns out, yeah, long division's where you cut off, I guess.
I had that happen to me, but it was in high school.
Right, like second grade.
That's
you must have
early.
been really excelling to be like, no, we have to stop her now.
Right.
She's going to be a dangerous woman if she knows math like this.
It's like the
in second
Terminator,
grade.
but
Maybe they were from the future. They're like, she's going to own a company. We got to stop that. But talking about your childhood, and you kind of mentioned the fact that as a young gamer, at first the love was great, and then you got into the community, and you're like, oh, they're not as welcoming. And obviously, this has kind of formed how you run your company, as well as how you led as an executive director. Have you seen good, hopefully good or worse, I guess, changes when it comes to inclusion for whether it's for gamers or whether it's for developers, like both?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have seen more inclusion, more games with wider target audiences and not ones that are reductive towards those audiences. Like that's, often a concern of mine. I've also seen varying levels of toxicity. I think it sort of comes and goes in waves. I think that things overall have been getting better, but I feel like the pandemic and the rise of more anonymous-focused engagement platforms have caused another surge of toxicity. Like I'm seeing a lot more toxic behavior these last few years than I think the few years before the pandemic. Now, admittedly, I've been a direct target of some of this, so I could be biased there. But I've heard a lot of people say in general that they feel like empathy has gone down post-pandemic, and that there's just less friendliness amongst society. And I certainly think that's true online.
Yeah. That's that question of like, I wonder if the people are having more time online and realize that trolling people is entertaining for them. And so they've gone on full force because that's what they did throughout the pandemic, and it's just gotten worse, which you would think they would stop, but they don't ever. That's a side note. But because we want to talk about all of that too, because you have developed a game. Hello, because I'm playing it. But you had a lot of like bumps in the road throughout. Can you kind of tell us first about your game, the game, and secondly, the process in developing this game?
Yeah, absolutely. So Potions: A Curious Tale is an adventure crafting game. You play as a young witch named Luna, who's recently discovered her ability to brew magical potions. And she can use these potions as spells to solve puzzles and battle monsters and overcome other obstacles on her quest to become a potions master. But you find that wit is your greatest weapon and combat is not always the answer. And the world itself is inspired by fairy tales and folklore from cultures all across the globe. When I first came up with the concept for potions, it was because I wanted to explore game design more, but my inspiration was frustration around games treating heroes as slaughtering creatures. I feel like as a hero in so many games, it's like if you slaughter every small forest critter you see, it is ultimately beneficial. And that just never felt heroic to me. Like, yeah, sure, if you need a bunny fur, like, yeah, slaughter the bunny. But if you don't, it shouldn't give you like golden experience. Like there shouldn't just be this reason to like slaughter everything that you come across. And I wanted to figure out a way to temper that. And that's when I came up with the concept of potions as the engagement mechanism. In potions, you can be actively aggressive only with potions, like using potions as spells. You can chase monsters into traps. You can get monsters to fight each other without using potions. But if you want to set something on fire, you got to use a fire potion. And that causes sort of a resource stress on the player because, potions cost resources. You have to brew every potion you use. And so it causes them to reconsider, do I need to kill this thing? Is this worth using one of my potions for? I can only carry 10 fire potions at once. Should I use one of these fire potions on this critter? Or should I avoid it until I need something from it and go about and do other things? And when I came up with this concept, it was never intended to be a commercial product. It was just intended to be a portfolio piece. In the games industry, having a strong portfolio is really important for getting hired. And so I just wanted to make this a little sort of demo project for my portfolio. But the more people I told about it, the more excited people seemed to be. And when I ran into people at future events, they would say, hey, how's potions going? Because that was just sort of my default name for it. And I ended up getting almost this fan following amongst game developers for this concept because they all thought it was really interesting. So at that point, I decided to kickstart the game and see if there was going to be enough interest from the general public to make it commercially viable. And it barely funded, like 15 minutes left. So I had this money, which was the bare minimum amount of money I thought I needed to ship the game. And I had to spend it all on like contracting out art and audio. It's like the only thing I could spend it on, and physical Kickstarter rewards. And so I was not able to like quit my job and work full time on potions. I had to get side contracts and other work. I actually was trying to consult and do contracting for a long time before I realized the overhead of consulting was just too much. It was just easier to find full-time jobs in the games industry and work nights and weekends on potions, or mornings and weekends was my preference. I'm a morning person, so morning brain goes to creative work as much as possible.
I like it. And, that makes click a little bit about why I like this game, because I used to, like I said, I told you before we recorded, I'm not the typical gamer, and I just really got into playing games. Like, I have become a fan of cozy games and the such. I always play phone games because I am definitely like ADD enough that I need that distraction. So all about swiping. So coming into this way, you're like, there's buttons and there's combinations and there's things you got to do. It's like, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to do this. That's the level. But the one thing I would do, my partner who is a gamer and loves it, was playing Red Dead. And that's one of the big things, is like killing all the animals. And I would actively root for the animals to kill him.
Go bear,
I'm a great partner. Yeah, exactly. I mean, literally, I was like, I hope that bear eat. Oh, the bear eat you good. I'm a great partner. But in that same realm, in the potions game, I'm like, oh, I can just run away from that rat? Okay, great. I'm just going to run. I'm going to run this way. Oh, yeah, that thing's trying to get me, but I don't have to get hit. All right, I'm going to run this way too. So I was like, that makes a whole lot more sense and makes it easier for me, so I don't have to do the battle thing. Because again, the combo of like, where do I go? Wait, where do I go with this? Instead of just, I can just go over there and go to this mission and do this puzzle. I will do that. So I think for me that makes so much more sense of like, this is why I enjoy this game so much. And the art is super cute.
Thank you.
It is. It's super cute. But all of that is like just clicking in my brain. It's like, you purposely did that. Obviously. Duh.
I actually think that first-time gamers occasionally have an easier time with potions than people who've been playing video games a lot. I feel like women are generally okay with potions when they approach it, but it turns out that a lot of the men that I've seen play test, they're like, I have fire potion, ergo I should burn everything I see. And then they'll run into like running out of their potions, or they'll run into a creature that you can't burn, or a creature that will attack you and always win if you try to attack it. And it's funny watching them come to the realization that no, you can't just murder everything to win this game. You have to be a little bit more nuanced in your approach.
Like, you have to save the fire potion to get past the haystack to get to that resource. I was like, oh, I get it. I'm not going to lie. Like, being able to think it through is so much more fun to me. I hope I'm not insulting anybody. It's like, I love the battles.
Everyone can enjoy different types of games. But yeah, potions is certainly for a particular target audience, and it's resonated well with them.
Right. And I guess, again, like talking about why including people who aren't your typical, or what people would see as a gamer, why is that something that you think is important?
I think it's important because video games are just a wonderful storytelling and immersive medium that everyone should be able to enjoy, right? Like, just like film and music, I feel like video games, are pretty much on the same level as those. And ensuring that there are games that are welcoming and empowering for people, particularly people who don't often see themselves in games, is important to me. And when I first started creating potions, I was just creating a game that I wanted to play. I wasn't thinking as much about a target audience, which is a terrible way to design a game. You're always supposed to be thinking about your target audience. And I figured, I was like, well, it's kind of a Zelda-like, so it's going to have a similar audience to Zelda, which it does. But when I was demoing potions one of the first times, I first demoed at PAX, and it was, I wouldn't say well received. It was like, some people were like, oh, that's cool. Nothing super exciting. Like, nobody being like, this is the best game in the world. And then a couple months later, there's an event here in Seattle called Geek Girl Con, which is a celebration of the female geek. And I demoed it there. It was actually the first video game to ever demo at Geek Girl Con, because it had only been tabletop games and board games. And my booth was just absolutely swarmed by all these young girls, because of course it's like a 12-year-old witch is in a fairy tale setting, right? Fairy tale fantasy setting. And the reactions that I had from that group of fans caused me to rethink how I was approaching the game. And honestly, thankfully, I didn't have to really change anything, but I made sure that the game was for them, because I had a little, like, I had a girl who was like 8 and dressed up as a witch, and she just pointed at the screen that was playing the trailer and said, "Look, Mom, it's me." Oh. And then I had another girl who was in 2nd grade. Her parents came up to me and they said, "Thank you so much for being here. Our daughter's in 2nd grade and she's getting bullied for liking Minecraft." So it means, because people are saying that video games are for boys and that she shouldn't play it as a girl. So it means so much to her to see a game here for her being made by someone that she can relate to. And that caused me to really think about how I was writing the story and how I was making the game, because I want an 8-year-old girl to play this and be like, yeah, that is me. Like, I can solve my own problems. I don't have to be the strongest. I don't have to be the most powerful, but with my wit and my perseverance, my creativity, like, I can overcome these issues and save the world.
It is. I love that about, because I had a similar story to you. I grew up like from 4 playing video games. I had 2 brothers, so that kind of colored my experience. And then I also got scared off of video games from online video games when I was like 12. But as I've been working through this on the show, several years ago, there was a museum exhibit that was just like games women have developed. And of course, the history is longer than anyone likes to give credit to. Huge popular games, by the way. But it was really cool because so many of them, I love when a video game like kind of understands what you think a video game might be and is like, no, it's not that. Because it has so long been, let's defeat this villain. Let's do the way forward is this way forward. And I like when a video game comes out and it's like, what if it wasn't that though? What if it was like a different thing? And so I think like this is so important in terms of representation, but also just creativity, because I am 100% with you in like the storytelling aspect of it. We've done episodes about like the health benefits of playing some video games. Like there are real world important things that it should be that a young girl can say, oh, I see that. I like that. I want to play that. It's better for everybody. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but people get so upset about it. They're like, don't you want more options rather than less?
Absolutely.
And I know like getting this game off, it took you like 10 years, I guess, from like when you were originally thinking this is just going to be an idea for my portfolio to, okay, let's actually create this game. Oh, they want this. Let's gear this and empower young girls, which I know you've made comments about wanting to do a story about a coming of age for young girls and witchcraft, obviously, and maybe a cat because Helios is awesome. Which, by the way, do I get more pets when I keep going, or is it just... I just love all the pets.
Sorry, Helios is too jealous. He wouldn't allow any other pets.
He's so pretty. I was like, oh, you're cold. Okay, let's go. But all of these things. But I know with that, there again, like when you're beginning your launch, my introduction to your game as well as to you was your TikTok video in which you had concerns about the release and launch date. And I know you made some headlines in different places. And honestly, it was like, to me, I was like, yeah, this is a very reasonable video. You worked 10 years on this project that you are in love with. And then things unexpected happen. And sure, it may not have been an attack, but when it comes to big corporations versus indie games, we know like there's a big bad. Corporations are a big bad. We're just going to say that. We say that on our show in general. And the idea is that a lot of the things are not 100%. Again, we kind of talked about some of the things that were happening at the beginning anyway. But with that, you got a lot of good support, but backlash as well. What was your initial reaction to this?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So to provide context for the audience, what happened was I spent lots and lots of time and research picking a launch date, and I chose to pick International Women's Day. Technically, in my time zone, it was the day before International Women's Day because like, Japan is 16 hours ahead. You know, other places are ahead. And I researched that date to ensure that there was no other great competing game launches. None were listed in any of the software I used to check that out. And that I was going in with a really strong set of supporters. So wish lists on Steam, etc. And from my calculations, I should have been on the Steam front page in a new and trending for 3 or 4 days, which is basically gets you 1 to 2 million impressions and thousands of wish lists and hundreds to thousands of sales, which for an indie developer is huge. Like that is a make it or break it sort of thing. And, you know, I launched my game. I was in all sorts of celebration. You know, I launched it. Yay, women. Like, yay, this is empowering. And I actually stayed away from looking at the sales numbers for a bit. And then when I checked them, they were like 30% of what I predicted with conservative estimates. And I was crushed. And I looked into it, and it turns out that EA had launched 11 titles from their back catalog like 2 hours after I launched my game, like immediately on the tail of it. And so though I hit all the thresholds and all the numbers, since that list is date ordered by launch date, they all came and just immediately knocked me off the list and all of that potential exposure. And I found this in my time zone, International Women's Day. And I was absolutely devastated. So I posted about it, and I also made a TikTok where, you know, I've made many TikToks speaking about my experiences as an indie game developer. I even mentioned the game. I said, you know what sucks about being a game developer? You can work 10 years on a project, spend all this time making sure you have a perfect launch date, do all the marketing, get everything set up. And then EA can drop 11 titles unannounced and completely ruin all your work. And then at the end, I said, so happy International Women's Day. And that last line there, that upset a lot of people. Obviously, I was sated because I was devastated for this to happen on International Women's Day, being like an empowering, women-focused sort of celebration, right? Like it's a game for girls about a girl made by a woman. Like I was kind of hoping that would be celebratory. And so that TikTok went extra super crazy viral, which had at first a huge outpouring of support. And then as the audience increased, TikTok's algorithms found that there was also a lot of engagement by really angry male gamers who were very upset about me mentioning International Women's Day. They were upset that I expressed emotions. They felt like I was being emotionally manipulative. And that just escalated into beyond the worst harassment I've ever experienced, like by magnitudes. I had death threats. I had people spamming pornographic images in my game's Discord, like really gross things. I had people trying to review bomb the game on Steam, trolling the Steam community forums. I had to put an anti-swatting notice on my house.
Holy crap.
Like, yeah. And that was almost 3 months ago now. And it's slowed down. But it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And it'll spike. Like I'll post a TikTok that will awaken algorithms, and then the main one gets posted out again, and then I'll get just like hundreds of hateful comments. And when I'm talking about this, like there was like 10,000 hate comments. Like this isn't like a small number of things. And on the launch of your game day, like, you're trying to like hot fix and like put out fires,
right?
Not also deal with community management fires and people trying to like abuse your community with graphic images and toxicity,
right? Not
to mention abuse you too. So it was stressful for the first couple of weeks. I'm in a much more stable place now. A lot less of a being harassed place as well. I've been able to release some hot fixes and updates. But yeah, I feel like I am almost now permanently in the public eye for the better and worse.
Right. I mean, like there's so many things to unpack here because you said it's International Women's Day, they're upset, which is just International Women's Day, hello. But B, they are not talking about the fact that this multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar company who doesn't give a about
no, not at all.
You as any person, let's just be honest, any person, and like they're defending them like they are the victim. I'm like, you're defending a corporation. One, that's really odd. B, we also know corporations like that use and abuse. We want to talk about manipulation. Days like International Women's Day, months like Pride Month, for just getting money. Like it's not even about being actually excited to work for or help women. It's just using that name or whatever that day. So like we have these two things, and then these trolls who just could ignore this. Like, why are you so upset when this is a part of your career? And they're like, yeah, you're trying to manipulate us to make us feel bad. What? How's this anything to do with you, dude? Like, like there's so many things to unpack of like, why are you so concerned to the fact that you have to put extra energy out to make sure someone feels threatened?
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's from these people, it's very rarely one comment. Like, it's often like I see my notifications, like a chain of ones, and not even on the same video. They like find me and they get upset, and then they go to my other videos, and then they're like upset on those. And I'm like, why are you hurting yourself? Like, if you don't like me, just go do something else. It's fine.
Right. Why are you taking this much time of like, why am I living rent free in your head like this? You need to calm down. But again, like it comes back to like, you're also doing this for a multi-million-dollar corporation who will never know your face and will care less about you in general. Like, so why are you defending this hard for a company? And I guarantee these are the same people who also Mr. You're being emotional, are the same people who would throw their controller at a wall and like bust up something when they die or something like that. Or the same thing if like a person interrupts them during a big moment and then they start screaming and like pretty much having like fights with people because you're so upset over a game like that you didn't even create. Like there's so much baffling like double standards in that alone. It's just kind of like, wow, y'all really want to do this? Like I get blown, because I'm not gonna lie, when I was looking through it again from my end, I think I was in that moment of like everybody supporting you and understanding exactly what you're saying. And yeah, we want to see more women. We want to see marginalized people in this role because we want to be included, or so that people will feel included, as well as the fact that, again, the people who are making all the money are the people who don't love it, who just wants the money. So seeing people who love the game, who love this job and want to bring other people up with them, that's what we want to support. Why is that a bad thing? So for me, I was like, yeah, we're going to support this. But then when you start reading the comments, and it had to be much later, because when I was initially seeing your video, I think it was almost the day that you released it, it was mainly positive.
Yeah.
So when I came back to seeing the comments and then seeing like they took it to Reddit, I'm like, oh my God, what has happened? And of course, 98% were men. Were absolutely, or young boys, we'll say young boys, because I don't know, I'm sure men too, but you know what I mean? Like it was baffling how they really took a hold of something and decided to run on their own narrative instead of just seeing a woman, an adult who is using her skills and smarts and knowing about the corporation, and then realizing that it got undermined very quickly and being disappointed in that, and seeing that this is a part of the business, but also being disappointed it's a part of the business too, and being able to freely say, I'm disappointed. It should be a standard. Like it should be okay. Like it should be, yeah. Why is this a bad thing? And they just ran with that. It was so baffling for me. And I'm glad you're on that other end, because I didn't know the rest of the part, because I'm not on the Discord. All I saw was obviously just me on the outside seeing the comments. And that was bad enough. So I could not imagine the mental health toll that it took to see things like when they were actively coming after you.
Yeah. I mean, it's twofold, right? On one side, you know, to for the most part, not take these people seriously. Obviously, like I said, I put an anti-swatting notice on my house. I was, implementing proper precautions just in case somebody decided to go overboard. But I recognize that, yeah, these are people who are upset, maybe not at me directly, but they're expressing their anger at me at least, that they're not my target audience. So it's okay if they don't like me or my game. And that I should not take their words seriously. And then on the other hand, each one is just like the littlest paper cut. And then when there are thousands of them, it gets real exhausting. It's really hard. I try to do things like I create lists of positive things that people say, I like cut them out and put them in a document so I can review them. And I'll use that to try to keep my attitude positive, keep my head above water. But yeah, it was still difficult. Like,
right.
But I refuse to stop. Keep making games, keep making educational content,
please.
Keep showing other people they can pursue their dreams.
Exactly.
Like, gender aside.
Right.
I just want to inspire others.
Right. And you kind of already mentioned the fact that you were like, I'm going to write a good list of the people who are supporting me. Because obviously, we know this in any industry, when you are a face of something, whether you're leading a company and creating games or any of that, you might go through these hard times. And again, gaming industry, like Gamergate was a whole thing. We know that a lot of marginalized people get harassed. For you, what do you do to persevere through those times?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of actively dismissing hate and toxicity. Like, saying to myself, doesn't matter. Like, these comments, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's also surrounding myself by people who support me and care for me and love me. The TikTok was by far the most toxic platform. When it comes to pretty much everything else, people are generally really supportive. So Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, I get a lot of support there. And like through friends and family. I reach out to them. I've always been honest about my mental and emotional state. So I'll be like, yeah, I'm feeling bad. I'm really anxious right now because I've been getting all these hate messages. Or, in the past when I've suffered depression, I've been like, yeah, I'm not doing so well, but trying every day. And I think that it helps to be honest with the people close to you about those sort of things, because it also makes it more approachable if they're ever facing similar issues. And then, luckily, I'm just really stubborn. So I do everything I can to keep pushing forward. I like sinking my teeth into problems. I like, being involved with helping others. And so if social media is too much at any point in time, I have a lot of other things to focus on. I have my game, I have mentorship, I have all sorts of other things where I can spend my time. And I try to only right now open social media if I am like mentally prepared for some harassment. Like I only do it when I'm feeling like good and stable. I don't just like, I don't allow notifications to come to my phone from those platforms. They have to be something that I pull and check actively.
That's smart. I made the mistake when I first started podcasting, looking at reviews, and I almost cried every day. I was like,
we all told you not to.
And they did. And I finally learned.
Well, that's a good point, though. That's so frustrating because you do want to, if there are like legitimate critiques, you do want that of like, okay, it seems like some of them you might be, okay, it sounds like you just don't like me and you're saying it politely. Okay. But some of them you're like, okay, I wish I had known this and I could have improved. And that's another thing. If you're getting like review bombed or all these negative comments, it's something that women and marginalized people have to deal with that a lot of white men don't. And it does impact your job. And that's ridiculous. But yeah, I had to make that same, I was like, I can't be on social media, which is a place where a lot of us show up and try to market our games, or I don't make games, our stuff. But like, that's directly impacts your job and your mental health and physical health, honestly.
Yeah. And I haven't done this too much yet, but I plan on leaning on others to help me sift through things. Like if you think that there might be good content and negative reviews, have somebody else read the negative reviews and tell you the like important takeaways, because that
this was my job at one point. I did this.
There you go. It's an important job.
It is an important job. But with all of that, you also did receive a lot of support. Like
Absolutely.
I said, I was at the beginning with like, oh yeah, everybody's like, yes, we're here. We hear you. We see this. We want this game. And with that, a bigger conversation of why supporting independent gaming companies like yours is so important. How do you feel in seeing this type of support?
I was so thankful for the support. And I know it's easy for me to get overwhelmed about the harassment, but I recognize that the outpouring of support was honestly really wonderful, and it did recover sort of the exposure and marketing loss that I had that had happened on my launch day. And I've gotten the very sweetest fan emails. Like I was expecting to maybe get like 1 or 2 fan emails ever. In the first week, I was getting 1 or 2 a day.
Oh, yay.
And like paragraphs long, talking about who they are and their experiences and why the game meant so much to them. I am tearing up actually thinking about it, because it's just so sweet to know that you can connect with others that way, that you can give them something to connect with, and that they appreciate something that you put so much of yourself into. And that's just been truly wonderful. And it's why I'm so excited to do my next steps. I'm looking at bringing the game to Switch and PlayStation and Xbox. So I have my dev kits. I'm working on porting. I'm just getting out one more patch for PC that's going to have a lot of quality of life improvements that actually are also partially for consoles, like making font sizes bigger and things more readable. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this game with even more people. And I am so lucky to be a game developer in a time where indie developers can exist, where we don't have to have publishers to make physical cartridges, where a smaller game can thrive. And right now, I think indie development is extra important because it is a wonderful storytelling medium. And there's so much that indie developers can communicate that other game developers can't. I mentor a bunch of Indonesian game developers, and they are making games that are bringing in their local culture and lore and history, and that's really wonderful. In potions, I mean, I intentionally brought in other cultures. You have Baba Yaga from Slavic lore. You have like 3 of the 4 Journey to the West characters in one of the sections of the game. You have Sinbad and a Sphinx. There's all sorts of characters and stories that help make people more worldly just by playing the game. Like, give them an insight into these other cultures and lore. And right now, with how the game industry's been, almost all of the AAA studios cut their research and development teams, their R&D teams. That was what they did before a lot of the layoffs or at the start of the layoffs. So there are very few large studios that are really working to push boundaries and create new IP. So that's where indie devs can shine right now. There's a huge gap in the market for us to do innovative things, to break new bounds, and to bring players to new worlds.
Yeah.
I met the Sphinx in the game.
You're saying it like you're haunted, Samantha.
I love the Sphinx.
Just say it.
She's got a great attitude.
It's cool. She does.
Tip for anyone listening, if you get to the Sphinx, say all the wrong answers first, because she has a unique reaction to each of them.
Yeah, no, I think I did one. I think she was really sassy. I was like, well, damn, okay.
I love this. Well, do you have any, speaking of, you've been talking about mentorship and all of this, do you have any advice for people who want to get into the industry?
Absolutely. Make a game. It doesn't have to be a big game. It doesn't have to be a new game. You can recreate Pac-Man. That's fine. Find a tutorial for a game engine. Learn.unity.com is great. And even just get out a piece of paper and start sketching out ideas. There are tons of resources available to teach you aspects of game development, but really the joy of game development is coming up with something and being creative. So just start there and then gather the tools you need as you go to sort of bring that first vision to life. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be complete, but you'll learn so much along the way and it will guide you along your path going forward.
I have to say, it's also a fascinating experience in like thinking about human psychology. Like, what will a person do? You know, like, okay, I've got to think about all of the strange ideas they're going to come up with.
I can tell you, you absolutely can't. And playtesting is super important. You have, you have no idea how much the start of Potions: A Curious Tale has changed. Not even like the core, like how it works, but changing like camera zoom and making things sparkle and giving hints. Like Potions tries to not hold your hand, but there are so many hints and like visual cues in there to help guide players, because the first time they didn't know what was going on. Like it requires a lot of iteration. You can think you've designed a perfect game and you'll put it in front of somebody and they'll be like, I have no clue what's going on and I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you in D&D. When you think you've predicted what they're going to do, they do something completely opposite.
Exactly.
And you have to make up stories.
Exactly.
It's like a beautiful, annoying thing. I'm like, wow. Okay, I never would have thought of that, but all right.
They're very creative.
Here we go.
And I like legitimately love it. But it is an exercise of thinking like, they're going to find some way to set this on fire. I just got to figure out how.
Do a fire potion, obviously.
Apparently. Okay, do you have any advice to, if someone's got an idea for a game, but they're not really sure, like, should I pursue this or what should I do? Any advice for people like that who have like the idea but don't really know the next steps?
Yeah. So once you have a core idea for your game, I recommend generating a like elevator pitch. 2 or 3 sentences that capture the absolute core of your game, what makes it special. I sort of actually gave you the elevator pitch for Potions earlier. So something like that. You talk about the genre, the story setting, what makes it unique, and that will help you have your North Star. It'll be sort of your vision there. Once you have that, think about your audience. Who would like that vision? And is it going to be, if you want to be commercially viable, a large enough audience to actually support the development of the game? And then if those 2 are checked off, make a simple prototype. Make sure that what you think is going to be fun is fun. Jonathan Blow actually has a really wonderful talk on indie prototyping and talks about like what is important to prototype and what successful prototypes are like. I won't summarize his like hour-plus talk there, but definitely prototype core mechanics, what makes your game special, and see if that's actually as fun as you think it is. And if it is, you're set to go. You can build it out from there.
Okay, now with all of that, as we are coming towards the end, I need to know, what are your future plans? Do you have other games in mind that you're creating, or what's happening in the world of Stumbling Cats?
Yeah, so I'm working on an update patch for Potions right now that has some quality of life features and more art asset updates. And then after that, I will be working on the console ports. So that should take me at least through October, if not into next year. Beyond that, I do have another game idea. I'm thinking of doing something that's a little more social. So when I grew up, I had like Pokemon Stadium, and Pokemon Stadium had a party game mode built into it. I never played a ton of Mario Party, but I have as an adult. And I really want to create sort of a really fun party game, silly game. And the nice thing about that is it is tight, small, fast iteration on small game experiences. I love Potions. I love story-based adventure games. I need a little bit of a break and do some faster iteration, find the fun really quick. So I'm looking forward to starting that next.
I love it. Can I ask that? So one of the things that I cannot do in Mario Party is when they have to run across things where they can't. Can you make sure that I can't fall off of things? That's what I'm asking.
She wants guardrails.
Guardrails, absolutely.
For those fast games, I can't.
We play a lot of Mario Party
and I hate
together.
it. Like every time I have to, also Mario Kart. Why do they let me fall off? This should not be a thing. I don't need this for my self-esteem. Anyway, just a thought.
Noted. Yeah, make it friendly and accessible for sure.
Just the bumper rails. That's all I need. Also, again, I'm talking about the fact that I am a beginner essentially when it comes to like working with different outlets and platforms, and I love a good like cozy game. I've really gotten into those where like but there's still like mystery and still a little gameplay in it. What would you suggest for me? Do you know of anything that I could look into? Or you know what? I could be more advanced. Push me a little more advanced, but recommend something for me.
I have the perfect game for you.
Okay.
This is like a cozy game, pre-cozy games.
Okay.
It's called Reciteer, an Item Shop's Tale.
Okay, I gotta write this down. Keep going.
And so you play as the owner of an item shop in a fantasy RPG. And you are, the main character's motto is capitalism ho! So yeah, it's a shop running simulator.
Okay.
You're trying to like min-max profits. There is a dungeon diving aspect to it. I love it, but you don't have to do the dungeon diving if you don't want to. You can purely do like buy low, sell high manipulation of the market. And it's really fun and it's really cute. Very well done. And it's pretty old. So I think you can get it on sale.
Where do I need to get it? Like, can I get it through Switch or do I need to do it Steam Deck through PC?
I know you can get it on Steam. I don't know if you can get it on modern consoles. It is a pretty old game.
I'll go find it. I'll find it.
This is so great. At the start of the pandemic, Samantha was like, never play games. And then as the pandemic has happened, it's like, you know more games than
I'm getting there.
You give me a lot of great advice.
I'm getting there.
I love it. Like, have you played this? This is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Renee. Would you like to tell the good listeners how to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find Potions: A Curious Tale currently on Steam. Just type in Potions. You should be able to find it. If you want to follow me on social media, I am RIKUKAT, Riku Cat with a K, on pretty much everything. So I am very easy to find if you want to find me on anything, except for YouTube. YouTube, just find me under Renee Gittins. I'll be there.
I thought you were about to say, like, except for YouTube, they won't have me over there.
No, I was trying to be more formal. I was like, oh, Renee Gittins, because formality. I should have just stuck to the same handle.
All good. Well, listeners, go check out all of those things. Go check out the game. It's awesome. It's beautiful. If you haven't already. And if you would like to contact us, you can. Our email is stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at MomStuffPodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Will Never Told You. We're on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
Thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.